exploring economic dynamics, impact on wealth, inflation, and wage issues for stability.
Everybody under 40 right now is just being straight tortured by this.
Yeah.
And on top of, and they're being called greedy and irresponsible on top of it for their troubles. And so you're demoralizing your own people. Like, these are your countrymen, these are your people, right? These aren't just your kids, these are your countrymen, like, and so on. And race notwithstanding, this is just, we're just talking about just Americans, because again, I'm happy to talk to Americans for the most part, but this applies to any other country. These are your people, and why would you want to do that? Why would you want to abuse them to such an extent like this? I would think that you wouldn't want to do this. We're not talking about guaranteed free everything. We haven't even talked about that. That's not even a thing, because no such thing as free in this world. So we're just removing that. We're just saying you can stop taking advantage of somebody. That you can do. Yeah. You can stop taking advantage of somebody. You don't have to give them anything extra, but you can stop stealing from them. You can do that. And that's the part that, that I think that there's a lot of folks, unfortunately, that make just too much money off of the theft. And
well, this is like a perfect segue into this next thing too, of with companies not paying enough money. Because my understanding right now is, obviously we all know where people are living paycheck to paycheck. So the last thing they have is enough money to buy a house, which could be considered an asset in some capacities, or stocks, or start a business. So if you don't have the money to do either of those, you end up having zero assets, which is the absolute worst scenario in this current system, right? Because you need to be able to have assets to grow, to keep up with inflation.
Right.
So if you have a whole generation who's not doing that, it's like, well, what could help them? What about higher wages, which we've seen hasn't really kept up? What's your take on companies? Like, if you hear, this $1 billion, $1 trillion company, are they being greedy 100%? They could pay everyone $100,000 a year, but they're choosing not to, or is it not feasible? Because I think that kind of bleeds into like a two-parter too, where people say if manufacturing came here, no one would work it. And it's like, well, for the right price, people would work any job, right? Like, what's your take on that when it comes to, big companies? Can they pay more and they're just choosing not to?
So you've got a couple of questions in there, and I'm going to have to, so I have to split this into two different ways to answer this, because there's two different, in an actual free market economy, meaning an honest money economy. In other words, a currency that isn't conjured from nothing, or that isn't used to bail out everything, that there isn't that big red button that prints money out of nothing.